We go gradually, don't worry. So regardless, the digital forensics as a field of study area, it is a scenario in which we try to track traces. We try to extract proofs. We try to acquire knowledge. In the sense of what has been happening, we try to find the details. The details in regards of trying to prove or just to have the knowledge. Prove what means we try to extract the evidences, and this is the field of forensics. Or we just to have the knowledge, the information. It has happened so and so. Both scenarios actually they are ruled and governed by the thing nominated digital forensics. So the forensics, the computer forensics, the digital forensics. We'll see and learn about the acquiring knowledge about historical events. When I say historical events, means yesterday, the day before, an hour before, an event before. There is no time restrictions, but there are considerations we have to consider. Or we try to digitally prove happenings or events also, or something like that. So this is fully the concern of the digital forensics. So we are going to learn the course for the purpose of being integrated to the civil events. We are not going to be working on the computer field only. So this is a computer, and we work on this computer only. No, we have to have a good understanding of the environment surrounding events in order to be able to track. Because we do not expect that, for example, the intrusions, we do not expect that an intrusion has happened from just one access point in a computer. No, it is not. In the sense of, if we're willing to track what happened exactly to help an attacker succeed in intruding, we have to know how he got into the access point, to the digital access point. Thus, we have to know the physical infrastructure, the access gateways. Actually, لما ناخذ النموذج, when we take the example of the University of Lisbon, how they let him get into the campus, even how he was authenticated there. So it is all correlated. So forensics is a scenario via which we try to investigate for the purpose of either having knowledge or acquiring knowledge, or bringing proofs or admitting proofs. All is based on the digging the digital environment, digital traces. These are the main objectives of the course. Actually, exactly what I was saying. Actually, we are going to see the theoretical side, but remember that all what we are going to see is from the real plane. We are not going to see the theories only. The theories and enhanced with the admitted proofs or admitted tools or things like that. Computer forensics, as the first definition, we just summarized in saying that it is the context of obtaining information and also analyzing information. So computer forensics is a scenario to obtain knowledge or to analyze data. Computer forensics. And since we are following a standardized protocol, actually, the book we are going to follow here, the introduction to computer forensics, actually, or let's say, yes, introductory course to the computer forensics, we are having a standard to follow, which is based on the National Institute of Standardization and Technology. It is mentioned in our book, it is saying, and here the first body that admitted, the first body worldwide we are talking, that admitted the context of the digital forensics as a standardized protocol or process, it is come from the United States. The FBI is one of the benefited, let's say, organizations from the standardization of the forensics process. The computer analysis and response team is one of the bodies that enhances the rules, that helps extracting digital evidences or things like that. It's a body, it's an organization that do delivers standards, no more no less. This is their platform. They have actually a public access. They are given access to the public community. Rules they are continuously being updated. The updates they are actually according to the civil needs mainly. Actually, they have to talk about the. For example, we are going to extract data from a digital device, but we have to respect actually the civil rights. When I take your flash disk, for example, and I try to see if there are viruses in there, and I have to dig in to extract the hidden files or hidden resources from your own flash disk. There is actually a privacy that I have to respect. There is a right that I have to respect. Means I cannot trespass the rights for the purpose of the let's say forensics only. No, there are issues here. That's the rules. They are usually the rules. They are usually being updated accordingly to fit the all. And the all here, I mean by that, the purpose of achieving the goal of the forensic event we are doing, and also respecting the laws that they are governing the community in question. As the example I given, if I just dig in your flash disk to extract an evidence if a virus was available there or not, I have to respect that there are other files or resources that they are personal to you as a user, as an owner, as an owner of the flash disk. So I do not have to touch that. So I have to have law قانون to rule that. I have to touch this. I do not have to touch this, and so on. Professionally speaking here. So forensics, they actually have an actually integration with a variety of fields. We can compare them, the forensics, whether they are related to a standalone computer or network versus the data recovery. Computer forensics is a context. Computer forensics and network forensics. Both of them, they are a context of just gaining knowledge about what have been happening in an event or a given event. But the data recovery is a scenario via which you try to recover what have been actually lost by mistake. They are actually, the data recovery, you may find it as a sub activity from within the computer forensics, yes, and the network forensics, both of them. Yet this is a complete field of study. We can go for a data recovery process and study completely without being involved in the scenario of computer forensics, because this data recovery is a field of study to, for example, help you be specialized in just analyzing storage devices, and you'll be able to delete, or to extract what has been deleted for the purpose later on to be deployed for this one. Actually, the idea here, what I want you to understand is that this subcategory from the forensics field, it can be playing the role of a standalone, let's say, study, research activity, something like that. The second scenario via which we compare the forensics scenario is to the disaster recovery. As per the understanding, the disaster recovery is one of the risk assessments scenarios. It means we are going to go beyond a disastrous event. There is a field of study via which we have to rule and govern the risks. Once happened, actually, the recovery plan or the recovery plans or the recovery teams, they would actually come into an action. Also, from this view only, recovering what has been actually damaged, whatever it is, logical or physical, means software or, let's say, hardware equipment, it has to be actually utilized for investigation later on, for a purpose or another. But we can stop at the level of just recovering that. I got my data back. I got my device running back. It's enough. Yet, this field of study can be actually fruitful for the forensics. means actually covering what has been damaged due to to a reason. But here we are talking about a disaster. Disaster, remember, it is not only a scenario of an attack, but also it can be due to a nature. Disaster recovery, it's a field that studies all the risks that can cause a damage to a resource. The resource can be logical or physical. All of them results, outputs might be utilized for a forensic scenario. Hey, any questions? Are you getting me? Are you getting the idea?
Yes, doctor.
The triad, actually, remember in the computer security also we had a very successful and very famous triad that governs the computer security, digital security, and also the cyber security plans, which are the confidentiality, integrity, and the availability (CIA). Here also in the scenario of the forensics, we are having a triad, which is the three elements via which we may say that the knowledge is enough. We are having an enough knowledge to go for a forensic or to acquire knowledge. Sorry, to acquire data, acquire whatever we need to terminate a forensics process. The investigation, actually, you need to have the necessary access to the resources to investigate. Investigation is to check if the computer is having a vulnerability or not. Investigation is to have to check if an access point is vulnerable to a specific attack or not, and so on. Also, intrusions investigations to check if there are solutions against specific types of intrusions or not, and so on. So investigation, intrusion response, and vulnerability, those are three, let's say, uh, acquisition triad that they actually have to be owned by each forensic specialist, in the sense of you'll be having to delimit and draw a frame via which you are going to go for your investigations. You are going to investigate what? You are going to acquire what? So the investigation, you have to know what are the things you are going to investigate. In the sense of what you are going to investigate is the thing related to the scene where the event happened. Which event? The theft, the robbery, the attack, the hack, the damage to your digital assets, and things like that. Means your computer, your mobile, or your network, or whatever that they are surrounding the event. The vulnerabilities, you have to be technically responsible for recognizing that vulnerabilities, they have to be happening on top of access points, and you have to have the skills to measure if the access points, they are vulnerable towards what. Vulnerable means you know that there is a threat can be happening through that access point. You have to have the knowledge in this regard. Intrusion response means you have to have also the knowledge to measure that the pre-estimated or the preset intrusion detection or intrusion prevention scenario is capable to do, yes, the response once an intrusion happens. So it's a context of intellectual capability that the agent or the specialized in the forensics has to have. Investigations, limits, border, frame, field, vulnerability measures, intrusion response recognition. Okay, let's say understanding. Is it clear, Aya?
Yes, doctor.
From the main concerns behind the computer forensics is that we have to start with an investigation of the what happened. What is there? After you recognize what was the event, for example, what happened, a full server has crashed. Data they have been stolen, exposed. Exams, they have been actually sent to students in prior of the date. Marks or grades, they have been released to students also before the date, let's say pronounced date or time or whatever. So we know what is the event. Now the forensic, what would happen during over the forensic, what would happen? Actually, you have to recognize the environment. Is it actually capable of declaring that it is secure or not, secure fully or not? And we have to consider that a big environment might have a disparate or independent devices that they cause actually a vulnerable access point. So environments with large sizes, they are actually vulnerable much more than the others. Why? Because we expect that there are disparate devices or non-updated operating systems formerly actually set and still they are operating and interconnected to the environment. Those are actually vulnerable access points, because a disparate device or a non-secure, let's say, access point, you remember the rogue access point in wireless scenarios, they are a breach, they are a vulnerability, they are causing actually an uncontrolled, non-controlled access point. So the measurement or the assessment of the available risk or vulnerability here, it is one of the musts that let's say a digital forensic agent has to do. It means immediately after you recognize what happened, okay, the event happened, means actually there is a file theft, or let's say there is an integrity broken, or let's say availability misrun or something like that. So later on you have to investigate what happened. Now you investigate. To investigate, you have to know your environment, and your environment, we have, for example, 100 devices, we have 1,000 devices, we have n devices. They are computers, laptops, mobiles, and things like that. Immediately amongst the considerations is that once we are in a large environment, so the expected thought or the expected issue to the cause is the disparate or the independent operating systems or devices in general. So technically we're talking, and these are the standardized approach. We consider the recognition of the environment. Once it is falling onto this case, large corporate, large network, large environment, means actually large is not in space. Large, it's not a wire that it is very long. No, the number of the devices servicing within the business work is very big. So we consider to expect that there are disparate, or let's say non-updated operating systems, that they are still on work, and those are the risk or the vulnerability issue, or the vulnerability let's say case. Exactly what I was saying. Good. Computer forensics also, it's a scenario via which we terminate, or let's say we determine a list of terminologies that you have to recognize clearly. We'll see them one by one, and we'll actually, because there are a long list of terminologies responsible to be under the field of computer forensics. Forensics is a matter of law, but in digital law study, but in the digital environment. Yes, we are studying law, but in the digital environment, and this law leads us to understand the criminal facts, criminal laws, and we apply all what it fits in our digital environment. Still, the field of the digital law is in update. It's not terminated. Usually there are updates, and usually daily there are actually new laws being amended, or new laws they are set. Laws amended means updated, or newly set laws even completely. The first thing actually we have to recognize, since we are going to make a digital investigation, digital investigation here, we have to have that there are actually either there is a body which is guilty or he is guilty, or another one which is innocent, or let's say proclaimant. There is a litigation. Two parties, they are fighting in order to get a right. The one who is guilty, he has to be proved guilt of an event. The one who is asking, or let's say he's proclaiming the event, he has to be proven that he is innocent and he is really acquiring to have his right. Litigation. Completely and 100% actually law term here. It is not related. It is not related to this forensic, but it is driven from the civil law to be utilized here. Analyzing operating systems, or let's say suspicious operating system that they are suspected to have actually proofs of an event. This is a computer investigation. Analyzing digital devices in general, digital devices which are suspected to have evidences about an event already happened. This is the computer investigation. To search for an incident, let's say proof, or let's say a crime solution, crime answer. What happened? Happened so and so. Okay, let's solve the problem. This is the computer investigation in our context. This is the concern of the computer forensics. A bit of history. Actually, the computer forensics is very old. It started since the 1970, I believe. The computer history here. It is one of the early set technologies. Yes, since the 1970s, actually, the first laws controlling the digital crime, let's say, working on top of the digital crime was set. It was working with the concern of eliminating and controlling the digital financial issues. And since then, it is actually being ameliorated again and again. The early 80s, the operating system DOS was in plane, and it is at that time facilitating the work of the digital forensics workers. Means the first one actually here was it working without an operating system? The answer, it is not the concern of the operating system here, since there were actually a list of utilities and let's say measures mainly to investigate. But here we are talking about a computerized environment, since the computers at that time, they are being provided to public due to the availability of the operating systems. So the view is different. And this those utilities working on top of the operating system at the 80s, they are mainly governmental solutions. Two very famous at that time data analysis and data recovery technologies utilized for computer forensics. نرجع الكلام اللي قلنا what we said earlier. For the context of the data recovery, there were two very famous at that age, mid-1980s. They are very famous at that time. The first one actually found the first in time, in chronological view. The X-ray gold actually it appeared, and it was recognized as a forensic tool, since it is capable of retrieving what has been actually lost in a digital environment. Yet, very easy to use compared to this X3, and most effective, means less failure once in action. The Norton disk edit. Those are very famous at that time. They are specialized for data recovery, not forensics. They are specialized for data recovery. And since this data recovery is one of the techniques or approaches we go behind to extract evidences. Thus, they are considered to be a forensic technology. Dedicated companies, they generated dedicated devices for their own work to control much more better. The Apple company at the year 1987 actually produced their own device that works specifically for their own purpose, and they are controlling their storage device here. This is the storage device. This is the storage device here. This is model that it works specifically for a dedicated, let's say, a purpose. It is actually a computerized device, but much more controlled. It means it is not open to all platforms. At that time, it works only for its own purpose. At that time, if anything happens, its architecture is completely recognized. Great. Still in the history, only the actually the International Association of Computer Investigation Specialists is another body here that is specialized in giving trainings and generating, let's say, technological tools for the purpose of acquiring proofs or acquiring knowledge about what happened, about events, making forensics, yes, like the example of the data recovery. So here, actually, at this age here, there is one step further than what we were talking about in the mid 80s here, which is the use of the operating systems. This DOS here, this disk operating system, it was a command line interface, like the command prompt what we see here today, the black screen in the Microsoft operating systems. At that age, it was only command line, but in the years 90s, at the early in the early 90s even, yes, graphical interfaces were introduced, and it was actually much more easier to understand from the non-specialized parties now, since it is using a graphical interface. So it is given a much more clearer interfaces that non-expert parties can understand the outcome somehow. The ASR data, actually, it is one of the very famous companies that up to today it works in the field of giving trainings, and also it generates software tools actually to go for the data recovery and doing different investigations under the category forensics or digital forensics. The ASR data, it's one of the companies, United States based, that up to today it is operating. Still talking about the history only. Good. The very important field of study under the title forensics. Remember, computer forensics, digital forensics, network forensics, media forensics. The forensics events that we need, actually, the forensics actions, the forensics approach, the forensics activities, we need tools. We are not going to go for all the details manually or based on the expertise of the experts. No, but there are tools that they have to be handy in order to achieve what the experts expect it's a case, or expect it's actually is a special scenario. To say that we are expecting that the data was deleted. Who said that? We have to have tools to surf and browse the available storage devices. So we have to have tools. We cannot surf a hard disk manually. We cannot. We have to have specific software solutions to help us accomplish forensics activities. Forensics activities. So the tools, they have to come into an action now. After understanding what is the forensics, what is I'm using the word forensics only because we might talk computer forensics, media forensics, network forensics. All of them, they are investigations. So, as an expert, you'll understand what are the forensics to do. Example, we need to scan an empty hard disk, searching for deleted files. Who said that there is or there are deleted files on that hard disk? Visually, we cannot. We have to use tools to search for that because we may expect that there were a virus and it has been deleted, something like that, in the hard disk. So to prove that, we have to see the memory content using specific tools, not to see the memory content, but to scan the memory content using dedicated tools. Aya, is it okay?
Yes, doctor.
Great. What we are going to see, whatever actually those let's say forensics solutions, they are only as per title of question only. As per title of example only, and they are up to the date of the book. Means if you compare them to the forensics packs or forensics, let's say, solutions or toolkits we are having today, there will be differences. This is what have been mentioned up to date to the date of the book written, when the book was written. But even though we are seeing examples only, so these are title of example, those are good to know. So there are utilities that you may use online. There are utilities that you may use online. That gives us actually different views. Actually, we cannot use an online solution to scan my local hard disk. It will not be feasible to do so because whatever is available online, it will not have the full access to my hard disk. This is the first view. The second view is that the environment is completely different. That is a cloud space, or let's say that is a WW environment that uses specific functionalities that would not have the 100% fluency to run protocols or commands system-wise. There are things we can do. There are, but limitations also that are there. They are there. So from the tools here, what we have to conclude is that the framework from where to launch a tool is the first key to choose or to specify which tool to use or which tool not to use. We are not required to use to recognize or to memorize those names here because, as I said, they are title of example only. Great. Here, exactly for those two words only, for special purposes only, the framework via which we are starting an investigation, it specifies what tools we are going to use. If you are just investigating a local device, or as we discussed earlier, a disparate device or an independent device, so we have to use specific tools that can interrogate such environment. Thus, for the specific activity we are willing to do, we have to use a specific list of tools also at the same time. I'll stop here. Later on, we'll go for the laws, the theories, list of theories. Almost we finished this unit. Whatever. See you inshallah الساعة 2 Aya. We'll continue a little bit and I'll discuss. Any questions here, Aya?
No, doctor. Thank you.
Thank you to you. So I'll stop at this level. Actually, why I'm stopping just a little bit earlier is just to give you the chance to ask or to have any questions. But since you are not asking, see you الساعة 2 inshallah. اللاب الأول and we discuss في اللاب قصة الاختبارات وما سيأتي. I'm gonna stop the recording also.
إن شاء الله دكتور.